What's up, Sanisa, Superbad Estrada here, and I just want to give a huge special shout out to the relay. Thank you so much for all of the continuous support, and thank you for all of the support during and after and before every single fight.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Ow! You're comfortable at and you want to fight at?
Yes, 108 and 105 also. I feel very comfortable and strong at those weights. 112 as well. I mean, 105 and 108 is always the weight that I wanted to fight at. But of course, I fought at 112 so many times just because I had to fight at that weight to get an opponent and to make a fight happen.
All right.
But yeah, I would also like to fight at 112 if the fight is right. If I can fight like a world champion at that weight, after I get titles at 108 and 105, I would like to do that too.
Are there any champions on 112 that you'd be interested at? That
Yeah, there's a champion who has the WBA interim title, and she has the WBA world title at 112. Her name is I don't know her first name. Her last name's Nyoko. She's from Japan, and she's a very experienced fighter. She's a lot older than me. She's had the title for a very long time. So if there would be somebody I would fight at 112, it would be her for the WBA world title.
Shanicia Estrada has an expressed desire to fight anywhere from 105 pounds to 108 pounds to 112 pounds, and in truth, there are opportunities for this fighter at any one of those given weight classes. It's not a question of opportunity, it's a question of what are the best opportunities? What is the best opportunity?
At 105 pounds, you could give Shanicia Estrada very good odds to beat any one of the three world champions that are down there, but there also happens to be a vacant WBO title there, a title that she could easily pick up against some contender in their rank standings.
So there's opportunities at 105 pounds.
There are also opportunities at 108 pounds where there are 4 active reigning world champions, one of which graces the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, Argentina's own Jessica Bopp. Mexico's own Jessica Neri Plata is there. Kenya Enriquez is there. The sister of Daniela Bermudez, Daniela, who graces the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, her younger sister Evelyn is also there. And Japan's own Tenkai Tsunami. I have to say that at 108 pounds, the light flyweight division, there's a bigger chance of Shanicia ending up in a fight that's going to leave a lasting impression on the fight fans. And that's what you really want from these fights, from 105 to 108 to 112. There are any variety of fights you could have with any variety of champions. So it's not simply cornering a champion that you want. You want to corner a champion that you can have a fight with that will thereby leave a lasting impression on the boxing fans. And I happen to think that at 108 pounds, there's a bigger chance of this happening. I'd love to see Shanicia Estrada versus Jessica Tutti Bopp, the WBA light flyweight champion at 108 pounds, as Jessica is one of the best boxers to come out of Argentina. One of the most malleable, one of the most versatile, one of the most highly skilled, decorated. Jessica debuted as a professional back in 2008, and since then, she's only lost one fight. 37 professional fights, only lost one. That was years ago, 2013. Currently, she's on a 12-fight winning streak. I've said it before, I'll say it again. A fight between her and Shanicia Estrada. The similarities they have in their combinations, their hand speed, their athleticism, their in-and-out game. It has all the makings of a barn burner. The kind of fight that leaves a lasting impression on the fight fans. And that's what you really want at the lighter weights. The lighter weights that characteristically don't get the same attention as the glamour weights like 135, 147, 160. We know that before COVID-19 shut everything down, Jessica was actually on an Olympic run with aspirations of achieving Olympic gold. But those aspirations have since been dashed, it being that the Olympic Games have been pushed to next year. We also know that before Jessica even went on that Olympic run, there was an expressed desire to face the winner of Esparza versus Estrada. As we all know, Estrada won the fight, so it's only natural that Shanicia and Jessica lock horns. It's the best fight anywhere at or around 105 or 112 pounds. Granted, that Senicia is in line to challenge Naoko Fujioka for the full version of the WBA title upstairs at 112, I think that the Jessica Buck fight is a far better fight that would leave a lasting impression on the boxing fans, and that's what you really want. You want to put on the kind of fight that fight fans are going to remember, as that is more conducive towards building an audience, building a buzz, building a fan base. Yeah, take Katie Taylor versus Delphine Persoon as an example. That fight left a lasting impression on a lot of people who, before that fight, didn't even know who Delphine Persoon was, but they certainly knew what she was capable of thereafter. And while there was some controversy...
It was a good fight.
It was still the kind of fight that people were talking about thereafter. It was still the kind of fight that left a lasting impression. Those are the kind of fights that you want to have at the lighter weights, that characteristically get overlooked in spite of how talented some of the fighters that are fighting are. Those are the kind of fights you want to have because they leave a lasting impression and give the fight fans that to which they can become acquainted with and thereby follow. So, I happen to think there are lots of opportunities between 105 and 112 pounds. There are lots of world champions between 105 and 112 pounds. But if I had to pick which fight I'd want to see the most anywhere at or around these weights, it really would have to be Estrada versus Bach for what is the full version of the WBA title in the light flyweight division. No idea if this fight is going to materialize, you understand. But a man can dream, can't he? In other news, per a tweet from Michael Benson, Bob Arum has named 4 possible opponents for Terence Crawford if the Manny Pacquiao fight can't be made next. 1 is Keith Thurman, 2, Sean Porter, 3, Yordenis Ugas, and 4, Cal Brook. Names that we've discussed several times already on this channel, names that you and I are all familiarized with. Crawford on the top welterweights. They can't avoid me forever. Well, maybe not forever. For right now, that's what they're doing. Thus, any further discussions on said names is really just a refresher course on what's going on with these individual fighters and what is the likelihood of Terence Crawford squaring off against
those guys,
any one of these guys in his very next fight. As far as the resurgence of Crawford versus Pacquiao as a proposition, as a hot topic, potential matchup, I don't know how much stock I'm supposed to have in this when most of what we've been seeing in the conversation has all been coming from the Crawford, Bob Arum, top-rank side of things. I've seen no confirmation from the Pacquiao side of things that there's any truth to what's being said here. Thus, I have not much stock in this proposition. If this fight were going to happen, it would have happened when both of these guys were on the same side of the street. As it stands, we don't know what Manny's situation is. We don't know that he has another fight or another 2 fights left in that PBC engagement, that PBC agreement he's been involved in his last couple of fights. We don't know that he's not going to end up somewhere else and fight someone else, like
I don't know,
Mikey Garcia, as Mikey Garcia's name has become attached to the name of Manny Pacquiao the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, more so than that. And I view that as a more realistic fight for Pacquiao in his unique set of circumstances, where he is in his career here and now. I view Mikey as a more realistic option for Manny here today. More so than Crawford, anyway.
Bottom line,
Till I see some confirmation from the Pacquiao end of the spectrum, I've no stock in these rumblings about a potential Crawford versus Pacquiao match anytime this year or next year, until I see Manny, Sean Gibbons, Boy Fernandez saying something in reference to a Crawford fight, something encouraging. I've no reason to believe what's coming from the top-ranked side of things. Then move on from a potential Pacquiao fight to a potential Keith Thurman fight. Yet another fight that I view as highly unlikely. I always have. Even when Keith Thurman went as far as saying that all they have to do is send him the contract and he'll sign it. I had no stock in those rumblings then, and I have no stock in these rumblings here and now. It's mostly because, you gotta remember, Keith Thurman hasn't had a fight since losing his WBA title to Manny Pacquiao last year. From then till now, he's had hand surgery. Given what's going on in the world today with the COVID-19 pandemic, Keith Thurman has intentions of fighting once, only once, this entire year, and I hardly think he'd walk into a fight with a guy like Terence Crawford under those circumstances.
yeah, I'm not seeing it.
Keith's talking about is negotiating a respectable situation for either October, November, or December, given that Keith Thurman has been a quasi-retired fighter for the last couple of years. Sparsely active, often injured, I just don't see him walking into a Terence Crawford situation this year, if at all.
Next year.
The next name on good old Bob Arum's proverbial hit list of names for his guy, Terence Crawford, is the name of Shawn Porter. And it's an intriguing fight. It's a fight that has picked up some steam. It's a fight that has a bit of a cult following. But according to Shawn Porter, it simply isn't the right time for that fight. We've talked about this here on the channel. I'll leave the link to that video in the description box. As far as Shawn is concerned, the conversations for that fight, they haven't even happened yet. And here today, it's not the right time for that fight. That's the kind of fight to where you want a big crowd, a big audience to see it. We don't know how long it's going to take before it's safe to stage those kinds of cards.
Maybe the end of the year.
Or maybe not. Maybe it'll be somewhere in between to where you're staging cards in front of audiences, but they're not big audiences. We're talking about adjusted seating with social distancing in mind, to where the fight's taking place at a big venue that can be filled by a lot of people, but the people themselves are being spaced out to observe social distancing provisions. We're still in the middle of a global pandemic, you know. And under those circumstances, I don't know that the fight itself would possess the kind of monetary value to entice Shawn Porter to even have it, to cross that street, to have a fight under those circumstances when financially it's just not everything that it could be.
And Shawn's still coming off a loss.
That's right. He hasn't had the chance to bounce back from that close decision to Errol Spence. You know, Shawn hasn't rebounded yet. And one would assume that before going into a fight with the likes of a Terence Crawford, you want to get yourself back in the winner's bracket. Hell, you want to shake off the ring rust since last time you had a fight was last fucking year. Bottom line, I don't view the Shawn Porter fight as being any more likely than the Keith Thurman or Manny Pacquiao fights. The two more realistic options on this short list of potential opponents are either Yordenis Ugas or Cal Brook. Particular to this conversation, I have no doubts that Cal Brook has more or less the same kind of aspirations from a Crawford fight that a Shawn Porter would. Cal Brook's not just going to go in there struggling to make welterweight for the sake of trying to make welterweight. No, he wants to get paid just as much as Shawn wants to get paid. That being said, given the social distancing provisions, how that might affect
the gate,
those in attendance, how many of them there are, well, I don't know how realistic Cal Brook is for the near future. I mean, he's more realistic than Shawn, he's more realistic than Keith, he's definitely more realistic than Manny, but, you know, Cal wants to make some coin too, and that needs to be addressed, that needs to be considered. Now, according to Bob Arum, out of this short list of opponents, this quintet of options for Terence Crawford, he's had the most correspondence with the Cal Brook people. There's also that to consider. But the guy with the least demands of a Crawford fight, it wouldn't be Keith or Shawn or even Cal. It'd be Ugas. You gotta remember, before COVID-19 shut everything down, back when Ugas challenged Shawn Porter for what was then Shawn Porter's WBC welterweight title, Ugas' reported purse was something to the tune of $300,000. $300,000. This guy's not expecting to go in there and make $3, $4, $5 million at a time, you understand? So he's got less demands than a Keith Thurman, than a Shawn Porter, than Manny Pacquiao, obviously, than a Cal Brook even. So, even though the Crawford people have had the most correspondence with the Cal Brook people, you want to keep your eyes on Ugas because he's a dark horse to get this fight. He's a sleeper. He might actually get it, it being that things have been a little smoother than usual as of late between the top-ranked people and the PBC people.
According to Bob Arum.
Not smooth enough that we're going to get that Errol Spence fight anywhere in the near future, but perhaps smooth enough that PBC guys maybe don't mind sending Ugas across the street for a title shot, for a title fight, as they can't give him one on their side of things.
Fat chance of getting a Spence fight.
Good fucking luck getting Pacquiao to know who you are, assuming he's even still on that side of the street. The bottom line here is the two most realistic options on this list are Cal Brook and Yordenis Ugas. But you want to keep your eyes on Ugas because he's got the least demands of anybody on this short list of opponents. And finally, per a tweet from Michael Benson, Alexander Usyk's K2 promoter Alex Krasiuk on Bob Arum's suggestion to face Dillian Whyte, Usyk has no need to fight anyone to prove his right for the mandatory. He was designated almost a year ago. I think WBO will follow its regulations and force AJ to comply with his obligation.
Yeah, more than likely.
No, I don't imagine that Bob Arum's boy, Kubrat Pulev, would like it very much if anybody attempted to play with, delay
his world title opportunity,
No.
his title shot.
Of course not.
Title opportunity is important to him, you know? Boxing is a young man's sport, and Kubrat isn't exactly a young man.
No, he's not.
But whether he's a young man or an old man, better still, what he is a fighter with a world title opportunity, and his world title opportunity is very important to him. So what makes Bob Arum think that either Dillian Whyte's or
Alexander Usyk's.
world title opportunities aren't important to them?
Yeah.
It's very easy for Bob Arum to sit there recommending that those two guys fight each other, but you don't see him recommending that his guy, Kubrat Pulev, fight somebody else. No, he wants his guy to get his title shot.
But they can't?
I think we've established that Bob Arum is being a big fat fucking hypocrite here.
You think?
But more relevant to this conversation, Alexander Usyk, Alex Krassyuk, they have no more intention of passing up their title shot than Kubrat Pulev does. But unlike Kubrat Pulev, Alexander Usyk, this ain't no career heavyweight.
Exactly.
It's a cruiserweight who moved up in weight. So the idea of running through a proverbial gauntlet, a host of other heavyweight fighters, these suggestions, or these kinds of suggestions, are even less appealing to a cruiserweight who moved up to heavyweight.
A guy like Usyk.
Alexander Usyk, who I think is a talented fighter, had a sensational run in the cruiserweight division, but is now campaigning as a heavyweight. And even now, we still don't know that this guy's cut out to bang with the big boys. He hasn't scratched the surface of the heavyweight division. He has had his token tune-up fight with the unheralded Chaz Witherspoon, and he's stepping it up a bit with Derek Chisora, a seasoned, grizzled veteran. Can be a handful.
He's a guy with nothing to lose.
Which only makes him that much more dangerous for Alexander Usyk. If he makes it through that test and passes it with flying colors, he's gonna want his title shot just as much, if not more than Pulev.
Because he's on borrowed time.
This guy ain't no heavyweight. You got a host of dangerous fighters occupying the top 10 ranked standings, and that many more coming, that many more young guys looking to make a name for themselves. So the idea that Usyk is going to be one of these guys that cleans out the heavyweight division? No, I don't think so. They mean to strike while the iron is hot because they know they're on borrowed time. And short of the Chisora fight being a physically taxing fight, I don't see Usyk stepping aside. Not unless that fight takes so much out of him that he has no choice. Usyk has unanswered questions as a heavyweight, and we've yet to find those answers. We don't know what's going to happen in that Chisora fight, but what we do know is he's not going to step aside to accommodate Bob Arum. He's not going to step aside just because you want him to, which makes that entire narrative that Tyson Fury should get to skip his mandatory Dillian Whyte because he's going into an undisputed title fight.
It's a lot of bullshit.
So if Anthony Joshua makes it past Kubrat Pulev, he still has this guy to deal with. And because he does, you can't keep using Anthony Joshua as an excuse to skirt around your mandatory Dillian Whyte.